Greetings, programs. Welcome to episode 28, Freeze-Dried Abortion. Just a thought experiment I'd had percolating around for a while and wanted to talk about. But yes, it's about abortion. And it's going to lead into some vaguely transhuman stuff a little, probably. So what the hell am I on about today? No, I'm not delving into souls and magic. If your argument involves souls which not only do not exist, but cannot, or involves magical invisible beings you cannot demonstrate the existence of, any arguments you make are off the table. So no, that's not what we're talking about. What I'm talking about is matter, meat, and memories, and experiences. See, there are two main arguments as to why abortion is moral and just. Argument one is that no full human has the right to life at the expense of the bodily autonomy of another. This is talking about full, undeniable people like you. Thus, the woman has the right to decide what happens to her body, even if her choices affect or even kill people who are relying on her body for survival. That's right, if your body is connected to hers and her body is filtering your blood, for example, she has the right to withdraw that consent, even if you die. And this lines up with self-defense laws in the US. You have the right to protect yourself, even with deadly force. Argument 2, and this is the one the pro-slavery side gets stuck on, even if you're talking about adult people with full rights, is this. A fetus is not a person, and thus has no rights that accrue to people. Now, I've done argument 1 to death, I think. So we are looking at argument 2, and things around argument 2. Now, an abortion is technically not killing the fetus. Yes, the fetus does die, but this is a side effect, not the goal. The goal of abortion is to terminate a pregnancy. The most common form of pregnancy termination is birth. That's right, when you give birth, you terminate pregnancy. The job of pregnancy is done. Time to clean up and recover. Also, a natural termination of another kind is a miscarriage. Many, if not most of which, happen so early that the woman has no idea she's even pregnant, and it just seems like an unusually heavy or crampy period. Footnote number 1, miscarriage. That's right, miscarriages are often sad, but are in fact the norm. And the women that know they have miscarried are actually the minority of all miscarriages. Now, on to abortion. The directed and intentional termination of a pregnancy. They involve the end of the fetus. I say end as it may not even be correct. Call it death. Does a wart die when it's cut off you? It ends, certainly. Biological activity stops. But does it die in the same way that a human or animal does? Or the experience is ending? Probably not. But with current technology, there is no way to terminate a pregnancy that does not also kill the fetus as a side effect. Which is why, given that the fetus is going to end, it is ethical to end it in the way that has the least impact on the woman. Which is why modern abortion techniques that are not simply a handful of pills in a bad period are somewhat gruesome. Because, as horrible as they may seem, and hey, if you think that's bad, have a look at open heart surgery, they do have a lesser impact on the woman. So yeah, it might be gross, but that's the ethical thing to do. But what if that didn't have to? That's today's topic. In some sci-fi books, they have things like artificial wombs, uterine replicators, so that a career woman can have a baby without needing to be laid up for weeks while they carry a small human inside them, and then recover from squeezing it out of a hole that's just too small. Now, would the pro-slavery side be okay with women terminating pregnancies in this way? What if we could terminate a pregnancy without ending the development of the fetus? Now, that's the test. That's how you can find out if the people are really caring about the fetus, as they claim, or about punishing women, which seems to be where all the policies end up. Because if women can end it, and the fetus lives on, then there is no moral objection to abortion at all, even from the false abortion is murder angle. What's that, imaginary interlocutor? This is all sci-fi stuff and really not worth considering? This tech exists now. That's right, they can grow lambs, yes, small sheep, in the artificial womb today. Give it a few years and some serious money and we can do it for humans. They are currently projecting human trials in 3 years. Obviously, if it does work, it'll be sometime after that before it becomes available to the general public. See footnote number 2, babies in a bag. Now, the current plan is to use this new technology for premature births. bung them back in a different oven to finish some baking, if for some reason the baby is born prematurely. But what is an abortion? Well, really, it's a very premature birth. So what if we take the fetus and we put it in the bio bag, and then spend the time looking for a family that wants to adopt a newborn while it finishes growing? There you go. Problem, solution, result. But hang on, where's the freeze-dried bit that I mentioned? Okay, fair cop. I threw that bit in just when I discovered that the tech already existed. Damn, but it's cool living in the future. Okay, so freeze-dried abortion. Let's extend that technology a bit. What if we could remove a fetus and put it on ice, or otherwise store it for later growth? Would that be likewise ethical? If, for example, you're visiting a country that does not have facilities for bag babies, but you discover you are pregnant and don't want to be, what if they could remove it and seal it in something, and give it to you to take home and then donate it to the bag baby banks? Consider, the fetus will eventually grow into a human, and the woman is not pregnant. Win-win, right? Well, this is where we discover if they really are all about the babies and not about punishing women. Because if they really are pro-life and not pro-slavery, then they will be like, oh, yeah, win-win. And they should really switch to campaigning outside of Congress or wherever to get the government to buy a couple stealth bombers less this year and throw a couple of billion into funding research for this. In 10 years, the tech could be available countrywide. No more abortions as murder. If what they say they believe is what they really believe, then they should be pushing for this as hard, in fact harder, than anybody else. Of course, if they don't, and they then start complaining about things like, well, why should my taxes fund it? Then you have your answer. The right to life trumps all, remember? Even tax dollars. But the cool tech I just described to encapsulate the fetus for bag growth does not yet exist. But cryonics and cryogenic storage does exist, and so does freeze drying. So why can't we simply cryogenically freeze the embryos? This is old tech. We've been doing this since the 80s. See footnote number 3, cryogenic embryo storage. So why not simply freeze down any removed fetuses for later? That way, if later in life the woman changes her mind, she can get it back from the bank, have it reimplanted, and bring it to term. Also handy if there's some sort of reproductive issue along the way. For example, the fetus could be implanted in a surrogate. That way somebody else brings it to term, but it's your genetic child, both of you. Remember, it's the pregnancy we are aborting, not the fetus, not deliberately. Now, here's the thing. Cryonics and cryogenic storage costs money. Not a great deal of money, but it does cost. But what if the fetus or embryo was freeze-dried and simply stored? Later on, that embryo could be restored with new technology that we don't have yet, or DNA extracted and implanted into an egg, technology that we do have, and then we could go from there. Currently, this sort of thing is doable, but it's cutting-edge research. As time goes by and more of this sort of thing starts to happen, the cost will go down radically, same as with any technology. You could have the sample sealed away in a tiny glass chip and implanted under your skin, or you could keep it in a necklace, so that when you do decide to go ahead, you have the DNA right there to get started. Or you could give it away to the gene bank for couples that have their own reproductive issues. After all, pro-slavery side is forever telling us that each baby has its own unique DNA and that's what makes them alive, and so that's what matters. So there should be zero drama or regret. Potential baby is not gone, just on hold. After all, unlike, say, cloning an adult human, you are not losing memories, experiences, or life lived. Give it a few years and it'll be right back, yeah? Just as it would have been. Either with you or with another. And this tech is coming. So there's your acid test. Is it morally okay to abort a pregnancy and put the zygote, embryo, fetus on hold, either by freezing, freeze drying, or whatever tech does become available, and either donating that zygote, embryo, or fetus to a family that wants it, or growing it in an artificial womb? This is not a question for the Star Trek far future. This is happening now. You'll see it in the next decade or so. For my part, my personal opinion is yes. Yes, it is ethical. Yes, it is moral. And, I would argue, it's a good step forward. Me, I'd take it a step further. Scan the DNA, and whatever else we might need, like the epigenetics of the embryo, and store that information on a hard drive for the future. They might need that in a few centuries. And your potential child could grow up in a future where no one ever died. Now that's a bright future. That's all for today. Tune in next time when I explain why worshipping the God of the Bible is immoral. Bye for now.